All right, we're coming up live. A little bit of music for everyone that will probably cut just a little short, but to give everyone a moment to understand.
Don't claim to know your story, don't even have my own. In the search for glory, gone with them sacred rules of old. They went missing down Highway 49. Devil's at the crossroads, sitting doing time. Preacher man discovered, passed down from saint to sage, like a kind-hearted lover who's been lost on this stage. Went missing down Highway 49. Devil's at the crossroads, sitting doing time. Crossroads, sitting doing time. Junkie and the jigger, just seen who done the crime. Captain pulled the trigger, guess who's doing time? They went missing down Highway 49. Devil's at the crossroads, is he yours or is he mine? Don't claim to know your story, don't even have my own. In our search for glory, gone with them sacred rules of old. We're missing down Highway 49. Devil's at the crossroads, sitting doing time. Devil's at a crossroads, joker's doing fine. Just sitting doing time.
There we go. Nice little intro. It is time for the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for WordPress plugins A to Z, not Z.
Welcome to another episode of WP Plugins A to Z interview show. In this episode, we are talking with James Welbes, who recently swapped the traditional WordPress Kool-Aid for an Etch license after nearly switching to Statomatic. Stay tuned for more. WordPress, the king of content management systems, powering the web with over 80,000 plugins to choose from. How do you sort the junk from the gems? Welcome to WP Plugins A to Z, where we've been keeping the pulse of WordPress alive for over 16 incredible years. Join us every week for an unrehearsed, real talk breakdowns of the latest and greatest plugins, developer and community member interviews, Some weeks, Amber and I team up to dig in. Others, I'm flying solo, unpacking WordPress news, demoing a standout plugin, or sharing tips to power up your site. No scripts, no fluff, just the good stuff from A to Z. So plug in and let's get rolling. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you happen to be hiding out on the globe today. It's another interview for WP Plugins A to Z, where we're diving deep into the world of WordPress innovation and branding with a true veteran of the game. Today, we're thrilled to have James Welbes, the founder and strategist behind Apex Branding and Design, a full-service agency that's evolved from its humble Cedar Rapids web design beginnings in 2014 to a powerhouse helping businesses rebrand and thrive. With over a decade of WordPress wizardry under his belt, starting from building sites as a kid, James has recently traded in the traditional WordPress Kool-Aid for an Etch license and nearly jumping ship to Statomatic along the way. As a cigar-smoking, Guinness-enjoying WordPress dork, husband, dad, and grandpa, he's not just about code, he's a master of strategy, client magic, and even plug-in prototypes through his Prototype WP service. Stick around as we unpack his journey, branding tips for the WordPress community, and why he's etching a fresh path in web development. Let's get into it. Welcome to the show, James.
Wow. Thank you for having me. I have to say that I didn't write any of that.
No,
And
no.
if you don't already sell your services as a bio author, you should be
Oh,
marketing that.
well, I had a little help, to be honest, on that. That's where AI comes in real handy, is it can write some fantastic bios if you give it the right prompts.
Yeah. You must have done a little bit of research too.
Oh, absolutely. I have made it a point to research all of my guests as best I can to find out who they are. So that way all the listeners get a really good interview and find out a bit about you. But starting with that, we're going to work with a little bit of your background. So you've been into WordPress for what you jokingly call a number of years that reveals you're old. Can you tell us a bit about how you got started with WordPress and what drew you into it initially?
Yeah, so I absolutely hated WordPress the first time I looked at it. The reason for that is, I never took web development seriously. When I was 12, I was I thought my friend was a wizard because he could make basic crappy little websites. And then he told me, I kept asking him to teach me how to do that. And finally he was like, dude, just right click on a website and click view source. I was like, what? All right. So I did that. And I saw the code of a website, which back then was much, much simpler. And you actually could just look at the source code of a website and teach yourself how HTML works back then. So I did that, thought it was cool. I felt super smart. Didn't do anything with it. Years later, I started to hear about this thing called WordPress, and so I was looking into WordPress, and there was a number of things that I hated, and the only reason I hated them was because I was just ignorant. I didn't know anything about how a dynamic website, what a dynamic website even was. I didn't understand what a database was or how that worked. I remember creating a page in a WordPress site and then going in and trying to find that file, like the about.html. And I was like, where is it? I just created a page in the dashboard. Where is the corresponding file for that page in the file manager? Because I didn't understand that there was no file. It was in the database and templates and all that stuff. So that frustrated me. Um, this was way back in the day before page builders. And so I would spend so much time trying to find a theme that I liked, and then I would install a theme, and then my site would not look anything like the demo from the website. So things like that just really frustrated me. And so I hated it, and I just like, I don't understand why anybody uses this. And I just stuck with it. I was still intrigued because I thought so many people use it. It's got to be me. It's not WordPress. I must be the reason that this is a bad experience. I need to actually figure out what's going on here. And I did. So eventually I learned how it actually works, and I discovered what a database was and what templates were and blah, blah, blah. And so then I kind of became a WordPress guy, and I started sipping on the Kool-Aid back then.
I was mixing
And
it back then, so
yeah.
I was all part of all the word camps here in Lower Vancouver Island during the first couple of years. So your agency, and since you started figuring it out, you started an agency in 2014, the Cedar Rapids Web Design. So can you tell us a bit about those early days, as a new business owner, working your way through the marketing, sales, clients? What were the biggest lessons that shaped you rebranding to Apex, branding and design?
Oh man. Um, yeah, so the early days. I think technically the first client I ever had, which tanked my career at GoDaddy, was uh, GoDaddy switched from their old website builder to a new website builder, and it wasn't like compatible. So if you wanted to use the new website builder, you had to rebuild your entire website with it, right? So I put out like a YouTube video. It was just like, hey, if you're on the old GoDaddy website builder and you want to use the new one, like I'll redo that for you. Like I'll build it. And I charged some lady $100 to rebuild her website. That's when I discovered that these easy page builders are not as easy as they want you to think they are. And I was like, I can't believe I'm doing all this work for $100. But that was probably my first ever paid client experience. And I don't even know if at that point I had started Cedar Rapids Web Design yet. I remember getting probably my first real client, I would call it. He paid me $1,000, which I thought was basically $1 million back then. And we never even went live with the site. I really didn't know what I was doing. I absolutely blame myself. He says that he just gave up on the project because he got moved in his job and he didn't want to deal with it anymore. And I'm almost certain it was because I wasn't doing anything good for him at the time. And but it got better. I got another client who actually appreciated the work that I was doing. I'd learned, I kind of knew what I was doing by that point. I actually made her an actual decent website that did what she wanted it to do, and so on and so forth. You just get better and better. But that was kind of the early days, um, and the rebrand happened not too long ago, probably longer than it feels like. But it it was basically, as you mentioned, my old business was Cedar Rapids Web Design. So I live in Cedar Rapids and I do web design, technically web development. I'm not a designer, but I realized that I didn't want to only do things for people who live in Cedar Rapids, and I didn't only want to do websites. I didn't want to pigeonhole myself in that way. So that's where the rebrand came. Apex Branding and Design. That basically is a vague nebulous of whatever. I can do whatever I want with a business name like that. So I can do whatever I want. I can do it for whomever I want in whatever city, state, country that I want. So that's kind of where the biggest reason the rebrand came about.
The other interesting thing is with your rebranding to Apex, you also rebranded to your BS podcast. Although seems like it's short lived, you might want to revive that because some of the episodes were actually pretty good to listen to.
I appreciate you saying that. That was a lot of fun. That happened during COVID, and then the place where we were recording, COVID related reasons, we weren't able to record there anymore. And so, and then my co-host Sarah, she doesn't really, she kind of got out of the marketing game. I would consider possibly bringing that back. It would be a hassle, especially to try and revive the actual same exact podcast, because I had a company that was managing and producing it for me. So I don't even know if I would be able to just jump in with another episode or if I would have to like start over from scratch.
Pick it
But
up where
that
it
was a
leaves
lot of
off.
fun.
You just pick it up where it leaves off. I do that. I've got several podcasts that are defunct, and every once in a while I decide to revive them and start producing new episodes.
Yeah.
I just pick it up where I left off, even if it's been 3, 4, or 5 years. As if I just went on a hiatus.
Yeah.
So at any rate, though, what was interesting is when you rebranded, you got into the marketing of brand strategist and working as a brand strategist. How has that evolved your business to doing things? It's just finding sites and
Honestly, it really hasn't yet. I spent so much time trying to learn as much as I could about branding. And I've really only had one client where I got to actually help them craft their brand. And that was a lot of fun. And years later, she ended up shutting that business down. So, which was, I felt bad for her because she was doing so well for so many years, and I'm not actually sure what happened. She just kind of said one day that she had a space in the mall, and she said she's leaving that space and going back to working out of her basically her home. She's setting up a studio there. She taught music lessons. So it was sad to see that happen to her after she'd been doing so well for so many years. And um, I absolutely loved working on that project. And it's just sad because I can't show that to people now. I can't say, go look at this brand that we did because it doesn't exist anymore. But I loved it. I have a designer who I usually hire for most of the design things that I need, and he designed a beautiful website. I built it in WordPress. We got to work with her to come up with her new logo. She came up with the name, which was really clever. I mentioned we live in Cedar Rapids, and she teaches music lessons, so she came up with the name Cedar Rhapsody School of Music, and I really liked. I think her wife came up with that name. I wish I could say that I did because that's such a clever name. But we did everything else besides the name, and it was a lot of fun. And I even commissioned a videographer, film producer to record a short documentary about that process, which, if I remember correctly, I think that is still on the homepage of my website.
Around. Did run into the client thing about the music that you did for an old logo compared
Hmm.
to their new logo, except oh, very interesting on that aspect. Now let's dive into a few of the WordPress tools. And as a self-proclaimed WordPress dork, what is the one plugin or feature in WordPress you couldn't live without early on? And not currently, but early on. What did you really have to have in every website you built? And then you can tack on how your toolkit has changed over time.
Yeah, so I have such a terrible memory. I don't even remember what I was doing in the very early days. I think I was probably doing what a lot of people do and just Googling, I need a plugin for this. But then I took a job working for an agency, and that I basically just adopted sort of their workflow because it just worked. It was good. It was good stuff. They use a form plugin called Formidable Forms. So I got myself a lifetime license on that, and I've been using that for like over a decade. Just about every website has a form on it, even if it's just a simple contact form. So pretty much every site I build is going to get Formidable Forms installed. Nowadays, of course, uh, advanced custom fields. I used to use custom post type UI to create post types, and then you would use ACF for custom fields, but now the ACF also does post types. Sorry, CPT UI, but there's really no reason. Um, yeah, so ACF definitely on just about every site. SMTP, I use what's it called? I think it's just called like WP or SMTP mail or something like that. It's
There's so many of the free simple
yeah,
SMTP plugins. They all basically do the same thing.
yeah, yeah. So that gets on just about every website, and then I just use the free version because I just need to connect to, my SMTP service, which I use Brevo, which used to be called Sendinblue. Um, yeah, those three plugins pretty much just about at every single website, and then until recently I was using Themify for the theme/builder.
Okay, well, as this leads us on into our next one, as you've recently stopped drinking the WordPress Kool-Aid for the most part and bought yourself an Edge license. I mean, you haven't completely stopped using WordPress, still using WordPress, but you're using Etch as your connection into it. Now, and almost going to Stomatic. I'd never even heard of Stomatic, looking all this stuff up. What frustrations with WordPress led to those choices going that way? You already made mentions here and there about themes and digging into them and the problems of dealing with the theming systems. I've gone through dozens of them myself for a couple 3 years. I was working with Gravity, Genesis. That's what
Hmm.
I got hooked into WordPress and got hooked into the Genesis environment. And they started changing and becoming static. And then I started all the add-on themes, the themes that come with 42 plugins that can never be updated and crash everything. And then I finally ended up realizing and settling down on a completely blank slate theme that wasn't a theme, and everything was from scratch on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
So enough of me. And so talk to us about how you stopped the Kool-Aid, ended up with Etch. Why were you headed for Stomatic, and then what drove you to Etch?
So I was still drinking the Kool-Aid until fairly recently. And by drinking the Kool-Aid, I mean I was one of those guys who would try to convince people how easy to use WordPress was. And people would say, "Oh, WordPress is not user friendly," and I'd be like, "You're crazy! It's so user friendly." And just ignoring the fact that none of my clients felt that it was user friendly, like, "Oh, they're just special. They don't, they don't matter." It's definitely super user friendly. Um, and I think I also kind of had to believe that, at least for a little bit. I had a job working for Liquid Web as a product owner. I started in customer support for the events calendar. Eventually was product owner for Restrict Content Pro and a new membership plugin called Member Dash. And then I was product owner for Learn Dash premium add-ons. And so, you know, we we all just sort of are like, yeah, WordPress is great. It's for everybody. It's for the absolute noob. It's for the professional. It's for everybody in between. Um, and then I saw like a post or a video, probably just a Twitter post from Kevin Geary, and he's talking about, what he talks about.
Mhm.
And I remember thinking, like, not really liking him at first because, it takes a while to wean yourself off the Kool-Aid. So I was like, nah, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just some elitist guy who, he just wants to feel smart and wants everyone to think he's super smart. But I just kept reading more things that he was saying, and I just started to realize that I didn't have any sort of like rebuttals to anything that he was saying. The things he was saying made me feel upset, but I couldn't describe why I felt that way, and I couldn't refute anything that he was saying. And then when I started to notice things that my clients would say, and it started to kind of click, and it started to realize, WordPress really isn't all that user friendly for an absolute noob. And I started to try and um, imagine that I was a noob. Like, okay, pretend I've never used WordPress before, and I just imagining the process of getting a website up and going, and I was like, there's no way my wife could do this. She's a smart lady. She knows how to use a computer. She has to use a computer at work. She's an occupational therapy assistant. She's a smart person. She There's no way that she would get a good looking functional WordPress website up. She would give up and she'd be way too frustrated. If she had to build a website, she would probably use something like Squarespace. And so then I just started consuming everything Kevin said, not agreeing with everything he said, but agreeing with most things that he said. And then my friend, my designer that I mentioned, he's also a developer, and he complains about WordPress all the time. He uses it when he has to. Um, I don't know, Mike, is my computer making
No,
the sound
that's
constantly?
mine. I forgot to turn off
Okay.
my notifications. I seem to do that on a regular basis with every show.
Uh,
I've turned
no
them off.
worries.
I've turned them off now, so when the emails come through in the next 5 minutes or 10 minutes, they won't ping us.
Okay, cool. Um, so my designer is also a developer, and he started using something called October CMS years ago, and he's been using that for several years. And then he recently has started using Statamic, and he's been talking about how great that is. And I haven't looked into Statamic very much yet, but I was starting to. I followed the founder on Twitter. He's a funny guy. Even if you're not into Statamic, I'd recommend following him. Um, and I was just kind of starting to think about possibly jumping ship away from WordPress because I was kind of getting tired of not. I didn't feel like WordPress was built for me. I felt like you either had to be a complete noob and use a page builder like I was doing. I was using Themify, which if you don't know what Themify is, it's just another like Elementor, Divi, whatever. It's a page builder.
Themify, I
And
know Themify well. I've run into it a few times.
yep. And I really like it as far as page builders go, but I was getting kind of frustrated because it's either you do that, you use a page builder, or you use Gutenberg
Mhm.
like a total noob, or you build everything from complete scratch, which I also was dabbling in. Um, I was starting to use AI to generate layouts and then take that layout and use another AI to turn it into an actual block. And, you know, then I put that block on the website and I would get pixel perfect, websites look exactly like the mock-up, whatever. And that was kind of fun for a little bit, but I know that I would have gotten tired of doing that if I started doing that for clients all the time. Just being in React all the time and, having to build stuff. So it felt like you either had to be a complete noob or just an absolute freaking legend of a developer. And I'm not either one of those things. And so I was starting to think that maybe I would look at other options. And Statamic just seemed like the right now it's kind of it's what people are talking about. If you're going to leave WordPress, you're probably going to be looking at something like Statamic. And then Etch, that's when Etch came along. I was watching what Kevin was talking about, and he kept talking about this new thing that was coming, but he was being super vague about it, and I didn't know what it was. And is it going to be a page builder? What is it? I was not one of the people who was brave enough to purchase a license before they'd even started writing code yet, which I know a lot of people did that, but I had not experienced automatic CSS or frames, so I wasn't like, a Kevin Geary fanboy yet. I had to see the product before I jumped on but after I saw him, once he started demoing the product on YouTube, I was like, this is what I need. This is for people like me. And it would make building a website a lot more enjoyable than fussing around with the page builder.
You've been working with Etch for a while, so much so that you're starting to create contributions for it now. Here, I looked at it when he first introduced it, and he caught my eye back around the beginning of this year when they had that crazy YouTube video they did that created all kinds of drama for a little while. But I did look at his stuff, but it was not someplace I wanted to go. I dug a little bit deeper into it and doing the research here for this interview here, and I still don't. I have my mind partly wrapped around what Etch does. And as you mentioned before, you said you could talk about Etch all day, so we're going to put you to the test on that one, and we're gonna dive into Etch. I know this is gonna sound like a promotion for Etch by the time we're done, but hey, get over it, folks. The Kool-Aid and WordPress is made from all kinds of ingredients, and I've been mixing it for 17 years now. For a while there, I
Yeah,
stopped.
absolutely.
For a while there, I stopped delivering it, but I've started delivering it back again, and all these new things in WordPress has revitalized it and brought it back to the fore. And even Etch is a good point of it. So anyway, coming back to the Etch, I see that it helps you build. From my perspective, there are different elements that you build that you then put onto your page, and it integrates them into Gutenberg for blocks. Now, I'm not a Gutenberg fan. I'll admit it. I don't use Gutenberg at all. We use Elementor for our site building, but it's not just a page builder to get into the back end of it and doing things. So, as you mentioned, yes, you either have to be Gutenberg beginner, hardcore developer, or somewhere in between, which lands you in a page builder or a helper page builder, such as I see Etch as. How does Etch integrate to, say, all the different sorts of plugins? For example, say WooCommerce or the new Fluent cart.
So, um, Etch, I don't know if Kevin will like me saying this, but if I was to try to describe what Etch is, I would say it's like Dreamweaver for WordPress.
Oh, that's
If you remember
awesome.
Dreamweaver,
Oh, I built my first websites using Dreamweaver.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
My first
Everybody
5 years,
knows what Dreamweaver
my
is.
first 5 years was Dreamweaver and PHP and CSS.
Yeah, and it was so cool because it would preview what you were doing. So
Yeah.
you would type code on the bottom, and you would see in real time what you're doing,
Okay.
which felt like magic back then. But today it's not that magical. But yeah, Dreamweaver was kind of a game changer back in the day, and that's how Etch is
Oh,
to
okay.
me. When you're in there, you're typing HTML, you're seeing what you're doing, in real time. You add some CSS, you see what's happening in real time. So you're you you have access to the code. It almost doesn't even seem like that's a good way to describe it because you don't just have access to the code. That's just what Etch is you coding your website. It's not like you're using a page builder and then, oh, I can go access the code if I need to. You're building your website with HTML. If you click, they do have buttons. So like if you want to add a section, you click the section button. All that does is literally add a section element into your HTML. There's not a bunch of wrappers like you get with Elementor or Divi, where you add a section and then you go look at the code on the front end and it's div, 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 just for like a paragraph. It's none of that crap. It's just pure HTML, pure CSS, pure JavaScript. And then it has tools that let you do WordPress stuff. So like you're working with WordPress, you obviously need to be able to loop through something, right? So
Right.
there's a very easy loop syntax that you use to loop through a custom post type, or you can loop through a JSON object. And again, this you'll see that syntax in your editor, but when you look at the front end, it's not adding any more wrappers. You can't see that you did a loop on the front end. All you see is a grid of images. There's no clue when you look at the code that that's actually a loop of custom post types, right? Or a JSON object. So it's just very, very clean code. And you can just about do anything you would normally do in WordPress. Like I said, loops, and there's conditionals and JSON objects. It's just very powerful.
And with the powerful of this is how does it work, say, bringing in something like shortcodes from plugins that are shortcodes to
So yeah, that's a great question. Right now, if you want to add a short code or like a block that either a core block or like a block that a plugin is adding to your website, you have to do that in the block editor. So, and I think they said that, eventually you'll be able to do this stuff from within the Etch editor. But let's say I want to add a formidable forms to my page. I just save what I'm doing in Etch. I click the button to go look at the block editor. Everything I did in Etch is now there in the block editor. Like you mentioned earlier, it turns everything you do into blocks, right? So you'll be looking at the block editor and you'll see everything that you did, and you can drop your formidable forms block, or you can drop a shortcode block and put in your formidable form shortcode, save it, go back to the Etch editor, and it doesn't render it yet. It just shows like a block, and it says like shortcode pass through or block pass through or something to that effect. So when you're looking that there's a block, there's a formidable forms block right there. And then on the front end, it renders just like it normally would. So it's a little bit of a workaround at the moment because you have to leave Etch, go into the block editor, and then come back to Etch. But it does work. It works just fine.
Okay. That's it. That's the thing is, I was wrapping my head around all of the aspects of everything that goes into a WordPress site, like the ones I build. I build oftentimes sites that have e-commerce stores, the form, sometimes membership sites included. Then they have their blog with custom post types, etc. So it's like, and what I saw with my brief research of Etch is it's an editor. I like your description of it as a Dreamweaver for the code because that made it make all the more sense to me watching the few videos I did on how it was used. So with Etch, what other things brought you to Etch besides this and getting away from the theme developments or the themes like Themify builders, I should build page builders. Could be worse. You could have been
Yeah.
using Divi.
Oh gosh. I since I started using Etch, I have moved one client site away from Elementor to Etch, and I've moved another one from Divi to Etch. Um, I don't like Elementor, and I think most of that is because I'm so used to Themify, but I really don't like Divi. Like I just don't understand how Divi works, how anybody uses it. The UI is just so confusing to me. And it seems like doing simple things is very difficult in Divi.
Yeah, yeah. I'm right there with you. I inherited a site like that. Didn't take me long to move them out of there.
Oh man.
But yeah, there's a lot of challenges in those aspects here. I don't like to berate all the different competitions and problems. Just the offhand comments about what I've done with them. Now you built. You just mentioned 2 websites that you moved into Etch. What kind of processing was that? Did that take a long time to do, or was it pretty straightforward to convert them over?
Sure. One random aside, I wonder if you could give that page that you're looking at a hard reload.
Page that I'm
That
looking at.
video. Yeah, you have Apex branding up.
Oh, all I did was I keep changing things.
No, I know.
Oh,
The video should be showing up if you do a hard reload. That's all I'm saying.
the video on your homepage.
Yeah. Um, but
Oh, there's the video. Well, the video never showed up
okay.
the first time.
Yeah, I was using Adam Preiser's Presto plugin
Yeah.
video player, and it had an update available. I updated it, and now the video is showing. So
Oh, okay.
I don't know. But to answer your question, yeah, it really um, one of the sites took a little bit longer than the other because it just had a little bit more going on. But it really didn't take a whole lot of time, especially with that site. The site that had a little bit more going on, I was also able to utilize components, which I haven't mentioned yet. It, for folks who for folks who are actual web developers, they know what a component is, like an actual term that means a real thing. So if you're building like apps in JavaScript or even PHP, like you can create a component, and a component is a reusable bit of code that, for the most part, is exactly the same in every instance. But if you utilize things like props, then you can like modify this instance in a little bit this way and modify this other instance that way. But then overall, globally, if you want to change something in all the components, you just have to change it one time in a component, and then that change, takes place in all the components, right? So it's a very, very useful tool to use components in web development. And Etch has a component feature that is very, very much like what you would expect as a web developer coming from building actual components in JavaScript or whatever. Some page builders have things like Themify and whatnot. They have a component-like feature that is, they usually call it like a template or something. Um, and they're okay, but they're just not quite like actual components. So I was able to utilize components quite a bit. For instance, just about every page had the same sort of hero section layout. So there was a background image, which was different on every page. There's a title, which of course is different for every page, and then there would be like a little blurb of text, which is different for every page. But it was the same exact layout. So I was able to create a hero component that was exactly the same, but it had three props: the background image, title, and the description. So I could drop a component on the page and then just type in the title would be dynamic. It would just pull in the page title. So I didn't even have to mess with that. The image would just be the featured image of the page. I could have made a custom field for that, but why when there's already a featured image? So I just add a featured image to the page, and that shows up in the hero section as the background image. And then I think I just used like excerpt or something for the little blurb, or maybe I might have actually just manually typed it in. But the point is, it was very easy. I create a new page, I drop the component. All I have to do is say, here's the image, here's the description, boom, that entire hero section is done. It's styled exactly the way it's supposed to be. Um, and if I ever need to change that styling for whatever reason, maybe I want to make the font bigger or change the spacing, I just have to make that change once, and that change will take effect on every instance of that component throughout the website. So utilizing things like that sped the process up for sure. Made it a lot easier to do. And there were other components that were, I didn't even bother putting props because they're exactly the same on every page. Like there's a testimonials component that just has, it's a very nice layout that shows cycles through testimonials, which is a custom post type. So that was super easy. Every time I want to put that on the page, I just click add component, uh, testimonials, done. Moving on to the next section, right? So
Hmm.
um, it's just stuff like that just actually makes building a website with Etch like enjoyable. I was definitely getting burned out building things in Themify, and dabbling with like I said, building custom blocks for everything. Hadn't even done that on a client site yet, and I was already starting to get burned out trying to do that. So
Sounds like Etch is pretty useful in multiple areas, more so than I thought. I may dig down into it and see what it can do.
yeah, absolutely. Especially if you use Dreamweaver for 5 years and you're that kind of developer, meaning
Originally,
you're actually a developer.
I gotten lazy over the last 10 years. I was
Oh, me
original.
too, because
I wrote originally, but I got lazy and lazy as the tools got simpler and simpler. I got lazier and lazier, and it's just having that knowledge allows me when something frustrates me, I can just go into the code and fix it.
yeah,
Uh,
that is 100%. That's me as well. I learned CSS and then basically never had to use it in a real project. I would, like you said, if something wasn't doing what I wanted it to do in the page builder, then I would go in and modify the CSS. But I didn't really know. I never developed any actual real skills as a front end developer. And since using Etch and watching a bunch of Kevin's videos and watching other people's videos, just having the background of knowing how HTML and CSS and JavaScript works, even though I never really got into those things at a professional level, Etch has increased my skill in those areas a lot just in the past few months.
would. Yeah, I actually did develop some skills back in my Dreamweaver days and using PHP and integrating. What led me to WordPress was in my early days, had all these different shareware PHP programs that I used for building websites with different functions. I had to make calls and bring. I had one client one time that insisted we have a right-hand column menu. Back in those early days, it was next to impossible to stick a menu to the right-hand side.
Yeah.
Took me a couple of weeks of coding to figure out how to stick it to the right-hand side for and keep it there.
Hmm. Did you ever build a site with frames, not
Yeah.
iframes,
Oh yeah,
but
frames.
yeah.
I used to build sites, and that was where I started, wasn't frames.
Hmm.
And then I realized these frames were a pain in the neck because they kept breaking.
Yeah. Yeah. But that was like my first experience with I'm going to call it a dynamic website
Yeah.
where you could create a header.html
Yeah.
and just put that on every page in the frame.
I've still got some old code from those early web pages. I'm a data hoarder. I've got data going all the way back to my early days in the late.
Does HTML5 even support frames? Like, could you actually do that if you wanted?
I have no clue. I've never even thought to check into it because once I got hooked into WordPress and the way it
Right.
works, I was like I didn't have to bother with all of that anymore. I just that information got pushed back to the back of my head where it's no longer used.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been the joys of being in this as long as I have. I've seen a lot of things come and go, and I've been part of the mess along the way. So well, we've talked quite a bit about Etch here, and let's talk a little bit about your branding and WordPress community stuff. You've been to events like Groundhog Day where you've talked about marketing, great marketer full of BS. Your brand strategy. Well, how does strong branding help WordPress professionals stand out in the freelance market, which is where the vast
Man.
majority of them are?
Yeah, you really did your research, man. I'm impressed.
Like I said, man, I want people to
Killing it.
we want to find out about my guests, and that's one of the goals of this show going forward.
Mhm.
Is the guests get surprised by things. Even the last couple of guests, well, what was it I did the interview with? It was the co-founder of Termageddon. I found out about his beer bong. Pulled that out for him.
There you go. That's awesome. Um, yeah, branding is very important, and there's a lot of you can. I mean, man, you can get down some really interesting rabbit holes if you start like doing some searches for like what's more important, branding or marketing, or what's the difference between branding and marketing, and people will like fight each other on this topic. It's very strange. Um, I saw a post one time that kind of made me chuckle. It said, um, marketing is when you tell people you're really good. I'm going to say at kissing, you're a very good kisser. Branding is when other people are saying that you're a good kisser. And I think I think both of those things are important. If you are good at something, you need to be telling people that. But if you can get other people to be talking about how good you are at something, that's even better because of course I'm going to say I'm a great web developer. But what does that mean if you don't really know who I am? no one who's in the web development business is going to go around saying they're bad at it, right? So that doesn't carry as much weight when I tell you that I'm good at something. But if somebody else says, oh yeah, I know that guy, he built a website, it was great, that carries a lot more weight with people. So it's very important that you consider your brand. Marty Neumeyer, see if I can remember this. Marty Neumeyer is kind of, some people call him the godfather of branding, and he defines your brand as, um, oh gosh, I'm blanking out. It's been so long since I've thought about some of this stuff. Um, that's going to come to me later. I'll have to bring it back up. But essentially, oh, it's a gut feeling. It's a gut feeling when somebody hears your name or sees your logo or sees your business name, they get a gut feeling. And I butchered that quote, but that's according to Marty Neumeyer. That's what your brand is. It's more of it's a feeling. When somebody experiences you and your business, how does that make them feel? When you see an Apple logo, how does that make you feel? Versus if you look at a Android logo or a HP or a Lenovo logo, a lot of people would say, I don't feel anything when I see an HP logo, because who cares? For a lot of people, HP is just another one of many PC manufacturers, but people see an Apple logo or they see the Android logo, and now suddenly they're getting feelings inside, good or bad. And so it's very important that you keep that in mind when you're marketing. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, forget about marketing. All you need to focus on is your brand. That's stupid. When you're doing your marketing, you need to be thinking about your brand. When you're hiring somebody to work customer service, you should be thinking about your brand. When you're trying to decide which materials you're going to purchase to build your widget, you should be thinking about your brand. Basically, every decision you do should be done through the lens of, what is my brand? How do I want people to feel when they see me, hear me, look at me?
Now, with that, many WordPress users focus on tech, strategy, and creativity. What's a common branding mistake you see in the WordPress?
Well, the biggest branding mistake I see in general is people just not caring about their brand. One thing I like to say is, if everybody has a brand, whether you think you do or not. So if you think, because I saw one guy posted something on LinkedIn a while back, and he said, don't even think about your brand for the first 5 years of your business. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I think he was talking about, like, don't hire somebody, don't pay somebody thousands of dollars. Like Fabian Garhalter, he's not the godfather of branding. He's much younger than Marty Neumeyer, but he's sort of one of the big names right now in the arena of branding. And he charges upwards of probably over $10,000 right now for like a single day of branding consulting. And so I think this guy is saying, don't do that on day one. And I would probably agree with that. However, I would never tell someone to not think about branding or not worry about branding until 5 years in. Because if you do that, you're going to end up with a brand anyways, and it's probably not going to be the brand that you want. And now you have to try to undo that. And it's very difficult to undo a bad brand or change a brand. So at least think about it from day one. Even if you're not paying a consultant for it, you should at least be thinking about it.
Sounds like you should always be thinking about how you present yourself along the way. You know, like I said, I've been doing this for 26 years, and initially my company brand was Smart Bomb Enterprise. 9/11 did away with the use of that name.
Oof, yep.
And so I rebranded myself as John Overall, and I stayed as John Overall, who I am. I only recently rebranded myself. Changes that are coming in this 5 years. Managed to maintain those brands way. And in particular, the most interesting thing I found, and something I've suggested to people, is if you've picked a name but it's not working, try rebranding as yourself if you're just an independent developer, because people like to deal with people. I found my business jumped dramatically when I
Yeah,
those interesting things.
absolutely.
All right, well, at this point here, what I'm going to do, we've got a couple more things I want to ask you about, but I'm going to cut off for those of you that are listening in the downloads right now, that are listening to the podcast feed. You're going to have to sneak back over to the YouTube channel to catch the bit. For all of you, wow, we've got 8 people sitting there in the YouTube channel. Hey, say hi, folks. We greatly appreciate it. Comments, try to make them in here. Oh, is that how you pronounce? Hey, Blake popped off. So did I get Welbes right for your last name? Because
You did.
Blake just popped off in the comments. Is that how you pronounce James's last name? I thought it was Welbes.
Yeah. Nope, you got it right. And that is the most common, Welbes is the most common attempt.
Oh, and Blake sharing the whole podcast with his whole office right now. Thanks, Blake. We greatly appreciate it. All right. So that's Blake Whittle. All right, so everyone say hi in there, and we will be back after I let my girl take us on out of here. And this is for those of you in the downloads, listening to the podcast feed. Come on back over to the YouTube channel and catch the rest of the show. There'll be a few minutes of stuff here. Don't run away, James. I will be right back after our girl.
Reminders for the show. All the show notes can be found at wppluginsa2z.com. And while you're there, subscribe to the newsletter for more useful information delivered directly to your inbox. WP Plugins A to Z is a show that offers honest and unbiased reviews of plugins created by you, the developers, because you support the show. Help keep the show honest and unbiased by going to wppluginsa2z.com/donate and set the donation level that fits your budget. Help us make the show better for you by subscribing and reviewing the show through your favorite podcast app. You can also watch the show live on YouTube at WP Plugins A to Z, and remember to subscribe and hit the bell to get notifications of all new videos. You can also follow the show on X at WP Plugins A to Z. John can be reached directly through the website wpproatoz.com or email him at john@wppro.ca. Amber can also be contacted through the website at wpproatoz.com or email her directly, amber@wppro.ca. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day, and we'll see you next week.
All right, we're back. For those on the YouTube channel listening, the reason I do that is this is a live to tape show. That is the taped version out into the podcast feed for those who want to listen to that segment of the show. So at any rate, what I've got here is just some future advice, a couple of personal things that we want to dig into a little bit. Looking ahead, in your point of view, where do you see WordPress heading, with especially in the last year, with so many changes having occurred and so much drama in and around the WordPress community? It's been very entertaining. It helped actually reinvigorate me for working WordPress. I was getting so bored with it. How might tools like Etch or Stemotic influence the community?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know how much Etch has influenced other companies in WordPress yet, but I think that there are companies that are starting to come around to the ideas that the Etch team had already come around to. And you can see that when you look at things like, I think Divi 5 is the newest version, and people are talking about how great that is because I think they're really cutting down on all the bloat, like containers and just divs inside of divs inside of divs. They're apparently cutting down on that. I've heard Elementor is jumping on board with like a class-based system for
Yep.
developing things.
Yep, they are. I've been experimenting periodically with their new class-based editor. They haven't released it yet. It's still in alpha beta, I
Yeah.
should say.
Okay. So it seems like maybe the community is slowly starting to shift in a direction that Kevin and his team shifted to 2 years ago, maybe even longer. Because really, probably automatic CSS is probably the beginning of Kevin and his team's shift in that direction, where they're trying to make developing a website in WordPress something that you can actually do properly, rather than using all of these proprietary builders and dealing with Gutenberg's nonsense. That was kind of the beginning. And so it looks like maybe WordPress is heading in that direction. I don't know. I don't know if something like Elementor would ever be the kind of thing that I would enjoy using, but if it if it at least shifts more in the direction of allowing real people to build websites the proper way, or at least closer to the proper way, I can only see that as a good thing. WordPress itself, I don't know, man. It's hard to tell the direction that a product is going to go when it's moving so slowly,
Yeah,
you know?
that has
It's
been one of its
so
problems.
slow.
That has been one of its problems over the years. WordPress is now 21, I think.
Mhm.
And in the beginning, it moved very rapidly and very quickly. And lots of quick changes. Like I've been working with WordPress since version 1.9, give or take. But it was making major advances very quickly. And then it got, from my perspective, it got bloated with, call it
Gutenberg.
decisions by committee. Is what is
Yeah.
is how I put it. It's like dealing with a corporate client. Everything you do is a committee decision, and it sometimes takes you what you should accomplish in a week can take 2 months to accomplish. It has to go through this group and this group, and sometimes it has to go up to head office, etc. Decisions by committee,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things I see with WordPress. And they've had things that have been on their plate for about a decade or more, cleaning up the media section of this, and
Mhm.
that's never been done. So yeah, so I've seen lots of those things happen, and it does move slow, unfortunately. But where it sits now is pretty decent with all the add-ons. That was one of the best things that WordPress allowed, is the ability for people to just plug into it with different aspects. Sounds like Etch has been able to do.
Yeah, and I mean, Etch is the only reason I'm not looking at other options right now. So that's absolutely correct. Like if if you're gonna go this strategy of trying to keep WordPress itself super bare bones and allow other people to hook into it and sort of rely on them to make it great, then you just have to really hope that great people make great stuff. And I feel like, you know, that hasn't been happening. I don't It's subjective. Like people say, "Oh, Elementor is great. Look at the market share. Elementor has so many customers."
Oh,
Sure.
they were first to the trough.
Yeah. And so I know it's kind of subjective, but in my opinion, I haven't seen anything really great happening in the WordPress space for a while. Etch is the first thing that has really um, just surprised and impressed me. I I've been having some conversations with some folks, even just today. I was talking to Remkes, and I was talking to a couple other people
Yeah,
about it, and I've had
I
conversations.
saw that little comments on Twitter started a whole feed. That was actually kind of entertaining.
Yeah, yeah, and there's just so many people that, for whatever reason, they feel like they have to come to WordPress's defense. And I get some people. If you work for Automatic or whatever, I kind of get it. But if you don't work for Automatic, I don't understand why people take criticisms to WordPress so personally.
Good
It
question.
nothing gets better because everybody who's involved just pretends that it's great all the time.
You've got to be open to the criticisms or ideas, and when somebody says so, yeah, sometimes it hurts if it's your own little pet project, but sometimes it helps you rethink your direction you're going. That's happened to me multiple
Yeah,
times in life. I've got several people around me that do that.
yeah,
Take me down a
and
notch when I'm getting to, lack of a better term, egotistical on what I'm doing.
yeah, absolutely. I One of the spicier things I've said that I know will rub a lot of people the wrong way is I don't think that open source software is any better than closed source software.
No, no,
And I think there's a lot of But
So it's the advantage to open source software is it's the access to it is easier for someone to build a business on top of it.
yeah, and there's a lot of people who are they almost treat open source as like a religion. Like they think if something is open source, they automatically assume it's good. They're like, I love this because it's open source. And I'm like, well, what if it's terrible though? Like just because it's open source doesn't mean it's great. And just because it's closed source doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah.
Um, and so for me, WordPress is really my only experience with open source software. And if I'm being completely honest, based on that, I'm not a fan of open source software. Just because I look at WordPress and I see, I see Gutenberg, which looks like a side project of some college student in his sophomore year of computer sciences, and it's been 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say things like that, it pisses a lot of people off. And I'm like, well, how many PRs have you submitted to Gutenberg? Like, well, none. Like, well, then why do you care? Why are you so mad that somebody is criticizing how slow Gutenberg has progressed? Why is it that the Etch team can do what they've done in 1 year, and Gutenberg, after 8 years, it still feels like a beta product?
Well,
People just don't like that.
That was what I thought it was when they forced it into the core in 2020. And it's like, no, keep it as a plugin. And it's one of the things I do because when we build a lot of the websites we build for clients, we turn over the content production to the client. And we've had to make sure that they can't load up the Gutenberg templates, the blocks, because they're not intuitive for people who don't understand, for people building content. You need that basic editor. Like says title here, content here, a couple other things here, use custom post types, custom fields, you fill out all that stuff. Your average user understands that quite well. Whereas they don't understand. I still have a tough time wrapping myself around a block editor when I'm forced to use this. Like, oh, wait, is this my title or is this my content? So,
yeah.
And that's the whole problem I've always had with it, is those things. Yes, Ryan over there at Influence WP, I love his comment there, rainbows, unicorns, and wappas. That's the open source. But I've been working with open source software. It used to be called shareware back in the day. Been using shareware and freeware since the beginning of the internet. In fact, I still have a few shareware and freeware programs that I've been converting over to WordPress plugins. Because they're nothing but JavaScript, and you just have to rewrite the JavaScript to work in WordPress plugins.
Yeah, and I love blocks. Okay, I love blocks as a replacement for shortcodes.
Mm-hmm.
We've all added a shortcode where we had to go look at the docs, and the shortcode is like a mile long because we got to add all these attributes to make it do what we want. And replace that nonsense with a block that has a UI and settings and toggle switches and stuff to just very easily do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Blocks are 1,000 times better than shortcodes. And that, in my opinion, is what Gutenberg should be. Gutenberg should just be blocks. Make it easy to make new blocks, make it easy to extend existing blocks, and just focus on banging out blocks. And 8 years later, people are actually excited about the fact that you can control the border radius on a block now. After eight years of this page builder.
I thought that was rather comical on that when I saw that. It's like, really? It took that long?
And you can't comment on that. People get all mad at you. Oh, why can't you just be happy? Why can't you just celebrate the wins? I can't celebrate border radius after 8 years.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Well, on that lovely note, I think we'll start to wrap it up. This has been one of my longer interviews in a while. Thank you very much for that. One last brief question, though, on a personal note, as a father, grandfather, enthusiast of woodworking, soccer, cigars, Guinness, how do you balance your family life and running a creative agency?
Oh, it's easy. The secret is to just not do any of it very well.
Spit out my coffee.
That's a half joke. It is hard. It's difficult to balance all that, and the short answer is you just make sacrifices. So you're not building as many things out of wood as you would like. You're not smoking as many cigars as you would like. You're not playing soccer as much as you would like. You have to have priorities. You have to do what's best for you and your family, and try to just not kill yourself with work. This hustle culture, I'm definitely not on board with the hustle culture where people think you got to be working, 10, 12, 14 hours a day. It's like you mentioned earlier before we started the podcast, like you can choose to try to make money. Every second of your life can be trying to make money, or you can actually try to have a life and enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to lean towards.
Yeah, that's why my agency is not very large. It's large enough to support us, but keeps us from having to spend 14-hour days at it.
Mhm.
Enjoy time. This week, my daughter's getting married this week, so it's going to be
Ooh.
gonna be a crazy week.
Congrats.
Yeah, well, congrats to her. Congrats to her with a good man. So, on that note, thank you very much, James. I greatly appreciate your time here in the show. Thank you, everyone who showed up and listened to the show, or almost the entire show. We hit a peak of 10 people here on it. Our peak loads. Sounds like
Right.
Etch may have been a prompter for. At any rate, with that, we're going to play a little music to carry everyone out of here. Don't run away on me, James. I'll come back to you after we exit the show here, so you can listen to the music one more time.
These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. A quarter after midnight, and I'm watching the wall. Sometimes I feel so uptight, I just can't sleep at all. Every day doing the same old thing, we're losing time. The weekend comes, we gotta have some fun and rewind. These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. I feel the rope tightening, choking off our air. We need to grab some lightning. Friday's almost here. Caught in a web, we need to cut this thread we're hanging by. Where is it said you have to be half dead to survive? These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. These are the days of thunder. We're gonna make time stand still. We gotta feel the hunger, hanging over the edge just to taste the thrill. These are the days of thunder.
Alrighty, folks, that's all we got now. Take care. Bye-bye.
Oh my god, that is amazing!
Oh no. Obviously, we just lost the satellite feed.